Good evening and welcome to the Connecticut Department of Transportation Virtual Public Information Meeting for Project 9795, the replacement of retaining walls and slope stabilization along Route 44 in the town of Norfolk. My name is Danielle Dixon and I'm the project designer for the project being presented this evening. I would like to thank everyone for taking the time out of your evening to attend this presentation for Project 9795. We really appreciate it and hope by the end of this event you have a clear understanding of the proposed project. It is at this time that we ask if you are an elected official to please enter your name and title in the Microsoft Teams chat. Thank you. During tonight's event, we will first introduce the project team, then cover the virtual meeting format, review the civil rights disclosure, present the project, and lastly hold a question and answer session. I would like to take this time to introduce the project team. From the Division of Highway Design, top left, we have the Principal Engineer, Mr. Matthew Vale. Top right, the Project Manager, Mr. Salvatore Resco. Bottom left, myself, the Design Engineer, Danielle Dixon. And from the Bridge Design Unit, in the bottom right, Mr. Jacob Platt. Also on the call this evening, we have Mr. Dennis McDonald from the Division of Right-of-Way. And in addition, Norfolk's First Selectman, Mr. Matthew Riska, is also on the call this evening. Information regarding Project 9795 can be found on the project webpage. During the Q&A portion of the presentation, you'll be able to submit a question 3 different ways. You can use the project email, which is dotproject97-95@ct.gov. You can use Microsoft Teams chat or the project voicemail, which is 860-944-1111. And please be sure to reference the project number in the voicemail. This project is number 97-95. The comment period is open through September 9th, 2021 by email or telephone voicemail. Microsoft Teams chat is only available during the live Q&A session tonight. Please see the following links to complete the optional survey and view the civil rights flyer. Please note no person shall on the basis of race, color, or national origin be excluded from participation or subject to discrimination in the development of this project. Before we present the project, I would like to cover some general project information. To provide some project history, in 2010, a landslide resulted in a day-long closure of Route 44. In 2013, the department began evaluating concepts. In 2015, the project was initiated, and in 2019, temporary measures were installed. The purpose of Project 9795 is to stabilize the northern slope along Route 44 for the safety of the highway, and it is needed because of the current integrity of the masonry walls and the history of slope failures. The project schedule is outlined below. The design for Project 9795 will be completed May 24, 2023. It will be advertised for construction August 2, 2023, with construction starting in the spring of 2024. Currently, the project is estimated to cost $24 million, with it being funded by 80% federal funds and 20% state funds. Therefore, the town will not be responsible for funding any percentage of this project. We will now cover the project presentation. We will be discussing the project location, existing conditions, crash data, proposed improvements, construction staging, and other considerations. First, we'll be going over the project location. Project 9795 is located on US Route 44, also known as Greenwoods Road West, between Old Colony Road and Route 272, which is also known as North Street. Route 44 continues to the west to Route 7 and east to Route 8. Route 272 continues north to the Connecticut-Mass border and south to Route 4. Next, we'll be going over the existing conditions. There are 3 dry rubble masonry retaining walls along the north side of the road throughout the project limits. Working our way east to west, we have Wall A, Wall B, and Wall C. I also want to note the location where the washout occurred in 2010 between Walls A and B. On the left side of your screen is a photo of the washout that occurred in 2010 and resulted in a day-long closure of Route 44. On the right side of your screen is a photo showing the current condition of the washout area, which has since been treated with stone. Moving on to the existing retaining walls, first we have Wall A. Wall A is approximately 195 feet long, located by the intersection of Route 44 and Blackberry Street. The wall ranges from 3 to 15 feet tall and has a 1-to-1 slope that extends an additional 45 feet in elevation to the edge of Center Cemetery. The roadway shoulder is 4 feet wide with no snow shelf. As you can see in the photo on the left, a significant bulge has formed in the wall. Because of the movement in the wall, temporary measures have been installed as shown in the photo on the right. Next, we have Wall B. Wall B is approximately 450 feet long. Height-wise, it is the smallest of the 3 existing walls, ranging from 2 to 4 feet tall. The 1-to-1 slope extends 50 feet in elevation above the wall. The photo on the right shows the existing condition of Wall B. As you can see, there are gaps in the wall, resulting from stones beginning to get dislodged. Moving on to Wall C. Wall C is a 2-tiered wall system. The top wall is approximately 130 feet long, and the bottom wall along Route 44 is approximately 270 feet long, located near the intersection of Old Colony Road and Route 44. The bottom wall ranges from 3 to 5 feet tall, with a 1-to-1 partially vegetated slope extending 15 feet in elevation above the wall. The existing roadway shoulder is approximately 3 feet wide, and as you can see in the photo on the right, the wall is leaning towards the road. Because of this movement, maintenance installed temporary precast concrete barrier, as shown in the photo on the left. Next, you'll be covering the crash data. 3 crashes have occurred within the project limits from January 1st, 2018 to December 31st, 2020. The first was a front-to-rear crash. The second resulted from unsecure rocks falling from one vehicle and hitting another. And the third occurred just before the project limits. This was a fixed object crash, and the driver did depart the roadway and hit the guardrail at Memorial Green. However, this crash occurred when it was snowing, and the driver was noted to be driving aggressively. Moving on to proposed improvements. The image on your screen is a color plan depicting the proposed project. The legend in the bottom left corner illustrates what each color represents. Full depth reconstruction with widening is proposed throughout the project limits. The reconstruction of Route 44 allows for the widening of the roadway and the removal of existing concrete pavement. Route 44 is a part of the on-road bicycle planning network, therefore widening the shoulders to 5 feet allows for safer non-motorized travel throughout the project area. The 3 existing retaining walls along Route 44 are proposed to be replaced with 2 new walls. The first wall, which is the eastern wall or Site 1, will be a mechanically stabilized earth retaining wall. The second wall, which is the western wall or Site 2, will be a soldier pile wall with lagging. Both walls will have an architectural finish. The town will select the finish for the walls. From previous discussions, it has been determined that the finish selected will resemble a stone-like pattern. A drainage swale will also be installed along the back of both retaining walls. Shown are typical sections. The one at the top of your screen is for Site 1 and the one at the bottom of your screen is for Site 2. Both typical sections show the existing roadway condition of 12-foot lanes with 2-foot shoulders and the proposed roadway condition of 12-foot lanes with 5-foot shoulders. We're able to achieve the 12-foot lanes with 5-foot shoulders by shifting the center line of the road and then cutting into the existing slope to achieve 6-foot snow storage areas along the face of both retaining walls. The image on your screen shows site number 1, which is the eastern wall. And again, this wall is a mechanically stabilized earth retaining wall or an MSE wall. And it is proposed to be 1,130 feet long. This section of site number 1 is referred to as the critical section, which is just west of Blackberry Street between stations 41 and 42. This is the area that will be shored with permanent soil nails. This is the structural typical section for the MSE wall. This typical section is for the critical section, so the soil nails are shown. Here we have the existing grade as well as the proposed finished grade of the roadway. The face of the wall will be segmented precast concrete panels with an architectural finish. Again, this finish will be selected by the town and it will resemble a stone-like pattern. On top of that, we have the precast concrete coping and a decorative fence. Beyond the fence, we have a drainage swale and max 2-to-1 slope that ties into the existing grade. Within the backfill, we will have soil reinforcement, which leads to the permanent soil nails. The soil nails will begin to be installed 10 feet in elevation from the crest of the slope and at an angle to avoid potential impacts to the grave sites in the cemetery above. Site number 2, which is the western wall, again will be a soldier pile wall with lagging and soil anchors. And this type of wall was determined necessary due to the age and condition of the foundation of the residential structure at 59 Old Colony Road. The wall will be approximately 490 feet long. Here is the structural typical section for site number 2. Here we have the existing grade as well as the proposed finished grade of the roadway. Site number 2 will be anchored into bedrock, and the face of the wall will be 12-inch cast in place concrete. This wall will also have an architectural finish. Behind the face of the wall, we have timber lagging, followed by soil anchors into the slope. At the top of the wall, we'll have a decorative fence and a drainage swale, and then off of the drainage swale, we'll have a max 2-to-1 slope that will tie into the existing grade. Next, we'll be going over the proposed drainage improvements. The drainage shown is a conceptual design. However, as of right now, we will be replacing at least 2 corrugated metal pipe crossings at the eastern end of the project limits. Also, due to the widening of Route 44, the curb catch basins on the north side of Route 44 will be replaced with new catch basins near the base of the wall. The water will sheet flow across the roadway and grass no shelf before entering the catch basin. The drainage discharge points in Center Cemetery will be upgraded as needed along the top of the slope. The improved 2-to-1 slope will help avoid future slope failures. However, riprap protection might still be needed as a way to dissipate energy and provide some infiltration from the cemetery outlets. The areas that might be addressed with riprap protection are filled in with a stone-like pattern in the photo at the bottom of your screen. The photos on your screen illustrate some of the preliminary plant species our landscape design unit is proposing to install along the slope. In addition to the previous slide, these are some of the smaller plant species the landscape design unit is proposing to install along the slope. Next, we'll be covering the construction staging that is anticipated during Project 97-95. Alternating one-way traffic patterns will be utilized for reconstruction of the walls and widening of Route 44. Truck detours may be signed to reduce traffic queues heading into the downtown area. The image at the bottom of your screen demonstrates what Stage 1 of the alternating one-way traffic pattern would look like. During traffic stage 1, a portion of the proposed eastern retaining wall will be built and the north side of Route 44 will be reconstructed while vehicles drive on the south side of Route 44. Once reconstruction of the north side of Route 44 is complete, the construction staging would be flipped, so the south side of Route 44 can be reconstructed while vehicles drive on the newly constructed north side of Route 44. So now we're going to go over the traffic stage 1 and 2 in cross-section view. So if you were to stand in the middle of Route 44 and look to your east, which is towards Blackberry Street, this is the view that you would have. So on the north side of Route 44, we would have the work area where the contractor will be performing concrete pavement removal. And then on the south side of Route 44, we'll having an alternating one-way traffic pattern. Once the existing structure of Route 44 is removed, the contractor would then install the proposed roadway structure on the north side of Route 44, while vehicles are still utilizing the alternating one-way on the south side of Route 44. Once the proposed roadway structure is installed on the north side of Route 44, then the traffic pattern would be flipped. So now we're in traffic stage 2. And this is where vehicles will drive on the newly constructed north side of Route 44 while the contractor is performing work on the south side of Route 44. Again, this is where the concrete pavement removal will occur. And again, once the existing roadway structure at Route 44 is removed, the contractor would then install the proposed roadway structure of Route 44 on the south side, as well as install the new guide rail system. A detour for trucks during the alternating one-way is not required, although we are looking at potentially signing an alternate route for trucks. This is what the image on your screen shows. The alternate route would utilize state routes to avoid the project area. If heading west on Route 44, to use the alternate route, the driver would turn left onto Route 272 just past Norfolk's Library. The driver would continue heading south on Route 272 for 13 miles until they reach Route 4. Once they reach Route 4, the driver will continue west on Route 4 for 5 miles until they reach Route 63. Once they reach Route 63, the driver would head north on Route 63 for 19 miles. This would bring them back to Route 44 in North Canton. This alternate route, utilizing state roads, would take 45 minutes to complete. Again, this is not a required truck detour, but an alternate route. So now moving on to the other considerations portion of the presentation. Within this section, we'll be discussing utilities, rights-of-way, historical considerations, and impacts. As a result, from Project 9795, there are some utility relocations that have to occur. So there'll be utility pole relocations, sewer relocations, and manhole and gate resets. The image on your screen shows the preliminary plan for the utility pole relocation at the western end of the project limits, which is at site number 2. The yellow line here is the proposed location of the retaining wall. The red dots represent the existing location of the utility poles, and the green dots represent the proposed location of the utility poles. Now we do have to coordinate with the utility company for these final utility pole locations, so those are subject to change. Continuing east down the project limits, here's the preliminary pole relocation plan at site number 1. Again, the yellow line represents the retaining wall. The red dots represent the existing utility pole locations, and the green dots represent the proposed utility pole locations. Here's the preliminary utility pole relocation plan at the eastern end of the project limits. Again, the yellow line represents the proposed retaining wall. The red dots represent the existing utility pole locations, and the green dots represent the proposed utility pole locations. Now, because of the bulge in existing retaining wall A, some pole relocations have already occurred. The 2 utility poles with X's on them have been removed, and a new pole was installed across the street on the south side of Route 44. So these 3 red dots show the new existing utility pole layout. In addition to the overhead relocations, 2 conflict points have been identified between the existing sewer and proposed retaining walls. The image on your screen shows the first location where a sewer relocation would have to occur. The dashed green line represents the existing sewer. The red circle highlights the conflict point between the proposed retaining wall and the existing sewer lines. The solid green line and circles represent the proposed manholes and line that would be installed to avoid this conflict. The image on your screen shows the second location where a sewer relocation will have to occur. Again, the red circle highlights the conflict point between the existing sewer and proposed retaining wall. The existing sewer is shown by the dashed green line, while the proposed sewer and manholes are shown by the solid green lines and circles. I will now pass the presentation over to Dennis to review the department's rights-of-way process.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dennis McDonald, and I'm a representative from the Connecticut Department of Transportation, Division of Rights-of-Way. I'm just going to provide a brief overview of the right-of-way process. So the function of the Division of Rights-of-Way is to acquire all property and property rights necessary for the project. This is done in accordance with Connecticut General Statute Section 13A73, 13A90AE, and the Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition Policies Act of 1970 as amended. The typical right-of-way impacts include partial acquisitions, easements, and rights. Impacts are subject to change as the design progresses, but this gives a general idea of typical property impacts. Once property impacts have been established, each impacted property owner will receive a letter of intent to acquire along with a property acquisition map. The letter essentially initiates the right-of-way process, and the map provides a detailed overview of the specific right-of-way impacts. Soon after the letter is received, evaluation process will take place, and once a value has been established, each impacted property owner will receive a written offer of compensation. Property owners will be given time to consider the offer and negotiate should they wish. If an agreement is reached, an acceptance document will be signed, and a closing will take place at a later date. If an agreement is not reached for whatever reason, the state will utilize its power of eminent domain and acquire the property rights through the condemnation process. Now, I understand this has a negative connotation, but many times this is done to keep a project on schedule. If the state elects to pursue eminent domain, the original offer is deposited in the court system, and property owners can continue negotiations or file a formal appeal for a reassessment of damages through the court system. Please note all appeals must be filed within 6 months from the date in which the state files for eminent domain. And that is all I have for tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dennis, for going over the rights-of-way process. I'm now going to cover the specific rights associated with the properties being impacted under Project 9795. On your screen, you'll see the different easements and rights that are needed under Project 9795. So for easements, we have construction, slope, drainage, sightline, and metal beam rail. And under rights, we'll have right to grade, construct driveway, and install sedimentation control system. The image on your screen shows the 3 properties being impacted at the western end of the project limits. At 59 Old Colony Road, a construction easement is required. At 163 Greenwoods Road West, a slope easement is required. At 145 Greenwoods Road West, a drainage right-of-way is required. Construction easements are required because it is the area needed to construct the project. It outlines the area the contractor will be allowed to work in. Slope easements are required to regrade for permanent conditions. And drainage right-of-ways are needed whenever drainage structures encroach beyond the existing highway line, so drainage structures can be maintained. This image shows the different easements that need to be obtained at Center Cemetery and 139 Greenwoods Road West. At both properties, a slope easement and construction easement are required. Again, construction easements outline the area the contractor will be allowed to work in, and slope easements are required to regrade for permanent conditions. The image on your screen shows the properties being impacted at the eastern end of the project limits. Center Cemetery, as well as 98 Greenwoods Road West, requires a slope and construction easement. Again, construction easements outline the area the contractor will be allowed to work in, and slope easements are required to regrade for permanent conditions. 89 Greenwoods Road West requires a drainage right-of-way to maintain the drainage structures beyond the highway line. A defined sightline easement, as well as an easement to install, construct, and maintain metal beam rail are required at 89 Greenwoods Road West. A defined sightline easement restricts the placement of plantings, signs, or other structures that would impact the sightline for a driver on Blackberry Street looking right down Route 44. This easement does not impact the operational needs at 89 Greenwoods Road West. Moving on to historical considerations. There are historic properties in the area, as I'm sure you're aware. These historic properties include both those listed upon or eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, or the NRHP. So this includes Center Cemetery and the potential extension of the existing Norfolk Center NRHP Historic District, which includes 89 Greenwoods Road West. There are several other properties to the north and east of the project limits that have been identified as eligible. There are many properties to the west of the cemetery, and although they are old, they are not considered eligible. So what are the effects to the historic properties? Currently, we have a no adverse effect under Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, given the following conditions to be enforced by the department to avoid impacts that might compromise the integrity of the historic properties. First, we have the avoidance of heavy equipment operation within Center Cemetery, except upon paved surfaces or protective matting. Second, we have the protection of gravestones with high visibility construction fencing. Third, we have no excavation within the cemetery except in areas of known existing drainage disturbance. And lastly, we have minor right-of-way impacts to 89 Greenwoods Road West and no physical impacts to the structure itself. Next, we'll be covering the impacts at Center Cemetery and exactly how we're able to attain a no adverse effects. I do want to note there has been and will continue to be coordination with the department's Office of Environmental Protection and the State Historic Preservation Office. From coordinating with these groups, it has been discussed to require the contractor to provide a cemetery access plan and sequence of work. This will ensure undesirable impacts in the cemetery do not occur, and will also be limiting the construction equipment and the work area within the cemetery. Only equipment that can fit through the existing entrance will be allowed, and the work area will be limited to the easement that was discussed earlier. To review, the image on your screen shows the construction easement that will be obtained within Center Cemetery. The dashed red line shows the exact limits of the construction easement. So the contractor will be limited to the two roads to enter and exit the cemetery, and then from the edge of the road along the back of the cemetery to the crest of the slope. We were able to limit the contractor to that amount of work area because we analyzed the constructability of a temporary access road up the existing slope using a temporary earth retaining system. The image on your screen shows this access road that was analyzed, and it would be used to construct the critical section of site number 1. This access road was determined to be a feasible option and thus require less of a work area in the cemetery above. In addition, to ensure undesirable impacts in the cemetery do not occur, it has also been discussed and determined to have a pre-tree clearing meeting, protect headstones, utilize construction matting, and perform additional rounds of ground penetrating radar if needed. Some additional considerations. First, we have salvageable material. The existing masonry wall stones will be salvaged and provided to the town to be repurposed. Some additional considerations within Center Cemetery. The cemetery will be accessible during construction. We will require the contractor to stop work for funerals, and there will be openings in the protective fencing so the public can still access different parts of the cemetery. Here's an example of a similar project that was completed in 2017. This is on Route 133 in the town of Bridgewater. As you can see in the photo on the left, the face of the wall was constructed with segmented precast concrete panels with an architectural finish. This is the same method that will be used to construct the face of retaining wall 1. Just to be clear, I'm not saying this finish will be what's installed. As previously explained, the finish will be chosen by the town. But this is just an example of what it could look like. As you can see in both photos, this wall also has a decorative fence along the top. And in the photo on the right, it shows the drainage swale that was constructed behind the wall. So from the precast concrete panels to the concrete coping, decorative fence, and drainage swale, you can see how this wall is very similar to what's proposed to be installed on the north side of Route 44. I understand that clearing the trees on the slope is a concern because of the loss of screening. However, the photo on the left shows what the slope looked like when construction was completed. This area is the area where the slope easement was obtained. As you can see, the easement was needed to regrade to permanent conditions, which is why the slope had to be cleared in the first place. However, the photo on the right was taken in July of this year, so just 4 years later, and you can see how much the plants that were installed have grown and what the slope could look like in just a couple of years. Here's another photo of the project that was completed in Bridgewater in 2017. This photo was also taken in July of 2021. I think this photo does a nice job of highlighting what the retaining walls and slope will look like post-construction. And that completes the presentation portion of tonight's meeting. We're now moving on to the question and answer session. Please visit the project webpage at portal.ct.gov/DOT Norfolk 97-95 for additional project information. This presentation was recorded and will be available to watch on YouTube or on the virtual public information meeting video library webpage. Within the coming days, the project webpage will be updated to include links to the recording of the presentation. We will also provide the town with links to the recording for posting to the town's webpage. Please also complete our voluntary survey at www.surveymonkey.com/r/DCTG2CH. We would really appreciate it. And you can submit a question or comment through the project email at dotproject97-95@ct.gov. You can call in and leave a voicemail at 860-944-1111, and please be sure to reference the project number when you call in. Again, this is project 97-95, or you can leave a question or comment through the Microsoft Teams chat window. The comment period is open through September 9th, 2021 via email or telephone voicemail. Microsoft Teams chat is only available during the live Q&A session tonight.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sala Retzko. I'm a project manager in the State Highway Design Unit assigned to this project. I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to join us today and watch our presentation. Just reiterate some more of the information for posting questions available on Teams only during this live event. Email. If you are watching this on YouTube and you'd like to send an email, you will need to copy and paste the email address into your email account. You can call that number 860-944-1111 and leave a voicemail. And then we can transpose that information into this live Q&A so everyone's aware of what's being asked and we can answer that question publicly for everybody. I will make everybody aware that YouTube has a slight delay. We are aware of it so that if you do post a question, we will give you guys some time to catch up. The website or email address that is available on YouTube is available by clicking Show Now or Show More at the bottom of the YouTube video. If you are using a mobile device, I do know on some mobile devices it doesn't say Show More. There's a drop-down arrow next to the title of the YouTube video, and that will provide you with a description for the video. In that description, there is the project website that you also see on your screen right now. That is clickable. We do have one question that came in. The question is, how long should we expect construction to take? So the current schedule for this project is expected for construction to begin in spring of 2024. This is a pretty significant size wall and project in total length. Our construction seasons typically begin in April and end at the end of November. After the time frame, or the time frame between December 1st and March 31st is typically our winter shutdown period. So the construction seasons we do expect is a minimum of 2. We will evaluate more to see if there's any possibility of using different type of methods of construction to accelerate that time frame. We did get another question coming in through the chat. Did you say trucks will fit through the alternating one-way traffic pattern and not need a detour? That is correct. And if we can display, we'll jump to a slide showing how we're going to shift the traffic over. And then another slide that will really help you visually see it is that cross-sectional view of the work area. So the alternating one-way area listed shown on your screen right there, that would be a typical normal travel lane width with minimum shoulders that does allow accommodating traffic for trucks. So truck traffic will still be allowed during the alternating one-way period. The alternate truck route that we are proposing to sign, again, is not required. It's only there to address any potential for congestion, given the trucks do travel slower. It is going to be an alternating one-way with a traffic signal and timing associated with it. We just want to be able to provide that alternate route for those vehicles. To get another question come in with the chat, when can we expect letters of intent? That is associated with the right-of-way process, so I'd like to have our right-of-way coordinator, Dennis, answer that question.
Yeah, hi, this is Dennis McDonald with the DOT Division of Rights of Way. So the letter of intents are sent once the final property impacts have been established. So at this point, we're pretty early on in the design phase, but as the design progresses, we'll eventually get to the point where the property impacts have been established. And at that point, the letter of intents along with a property acquisition map will be sent to the impacted property owners. So we're still, I would say, several months off from that, but yeah, it's as the design progresses for sure.
Just to add to that, to make everyone aware of our process here with the designing of the project, what we are at a stage is presenting this to the public as a design that we're proposing. Once we move forward with the design, we'll be looking at other tasks that require drainage analysis, looking better at potential of accelerating construction, and some of those things will play into what the right-of-way process takes. So we do have some time for that to happen. The department's not intending to issue letters of that nature in a very near future. We can expect some time for that. Okay, looks like we got a question in from email. How tall will the wall be? I'd like to have Jacob Platt, who's the design engineer and the project engineer in our bridge design unit, answer that. And it might be helpful for us to show a typical cross section that we have in the presentation. Jacob, if you want to answer that.
So my name's Jacob Platt. I'm in the bridge design unit at Southside, and I'm the structural engineer working on this project. So both walls vary in height. The majority of the wall at site number 1, which is shown here, this is showing the critical section. The majority of the wall will be about 30 feet tall, with the tallest section, again shown here, is about 42 feet tall. The wall at site number 2, which is just west of site number 1, ranges in height from 6 feet to 19 feet. This picture here shows site number 2, and both walls will have a 4-foot tall decorative fence on top.
Thanks, Jacob. Just want to remind everybody to send in your chats, your questions through this chat. I do understand email might be a little bit easier for some people, so I want to make everybody aware that the comment period to be able to send emails or voicemails is open through September 9th of 2021. And this video that you saw today of the presentation will be available on YouTube. Also, it'd be appreciative if everyone would be able to hop on and do that Survey Monkey for us. And it doesn't ask for any personal information, so it's also general topic info, and it helps us being able to move forward with other meetings, especially doing virtuals now and how we plan on doing them in the future. And we do have that link available in the chat if you're not able to get it on YouTube or get it on any other Teams. If you're watching it, you can just click on that in the live Q&A, and the website for the project was posted there. You can click right on it. If anyone does ever come with any questions, in the meantime, that email address is preferred. And again, it is available through that website as well. If you jot that down now, though, it might help you out in the future. The email will be monitored by myself and a design team assigned to this project, so your question will get answered. And we can also provide you with any kind of color plan if you saw one today that in the presentation that you're interested in. As simple as send us an email requesting that. We'd be more than happy to send it over if anyone wants that. So we got a email question came in. Will there be construction during the winter? So the winter season, again, our winter shutdown being from December 1st to the end of March. I think everyone that would be attending this meeting knows that Norfolk is known as the icebox. So it may be very difficult for our contractor to perform any work during the winter. With that said, if the weather does cooperate by chance and it allows us to do some work, there is a possibility of the contractor doing that. There is a process the contractor has to follow to request to be able to work during that time frame. But it is typically not a norm. It'd be atypical for us to be out there working during the winter, and I don't expect it given the weather that this area of the state experiences. And just want to remind our YouTube watchers, if you're looking for that link, again, you got to click the show more. If you're on a mobile device, there's a little drop down arrow next to the title that'll give you the description. In that description is the email address, the phone number, and a link for the Survey Monkey. You can also get to the project website from there as well. Okay, we got a chat that was posted for why are you removing the concrete portion of the roadway? That's the amount of work that we're going to be doing out here and the excavation required to put in the wall. The department takes advantage of the opportunities to remove concrete pavement. It really compromises the integrity of the pavement in itself. Its age ends up deteriorating. It requires a lot of maintenance for the pavement itself. It causes a lot of cracking that shows up through the bituminous, the asphalt. So having to then perform those repairs, and especially again in this area of the state, the weather conditions that are experienced, the salt that we need to get down, there's a lot of freeze thaw that will just damage the roadway. The amount of work that we're putting out here, it's a good investment to be able to remove that pavement while we can. Otherwise, it's another time frame of disturbance of whether ripping up the road or trying to rehab the road later on. So we'll take advantage of the time that we're out there and be able to put in brand new pavement that have a better lifespan. We did get a email show up, and we're going to be posting that shortly. Seeing it come through, I'll address it. The email question that came through is, how far east will the pavement be removed and replaced? If you see right now, there's a color plan that's shown up, and to the right is east, and it has that bend right where Route 44 intersects Route 272 on the far left of the color plan. We are pretty much matching into the pavement further west of that, and a good location to highlight with it is the Alfa Romeo building around that area, just before or just west of Memorial Green. And since we're talking about paving limits, the western limit will be the junction of Old Colony Road, which is shown to the left of your screen. All right. At this point, I'd like to just make a last call to questions. If anyone has any, please enter them into the chat. You can send an email, or you can use the voicemail. Again, we do know that YouTube has a little bit of a slight lag, so we'll give YouTube some time to catch up and give them the opportunity to write in those questions via email or send a voicemail over. And if at the end of this, if we don't end up having any more questions coming in, I just want to remind everybody that the comment period is through September 9th. And you can send them in. Email would be preferred. Again, that email box is monitored by myself and the remaining design team. If you leave a voicemail, it'll still get collected. And we can still provide you a response with it. If you can leave us an email or some such, or a phone call or a phone number if you do want a call returned, we can certainly do that as well. Also do want to remind everybody of the survey, and the link was also provided in this chat. All right, we got an email question that came in. How far east will the concrete pavement be replaced in front of 9 Greenwoods West? I'm going to share my screen now and share a color plan that I have open to be able to answer that. I think getting the question about the that particular area would be appropriate to discuss on its own. Okay. So this is our overall color plan. And we were talking about these limits here on the east side of the project. So as you can see, the building, the Alfa Romeo building, we're pretty close to the end of it. And that's pretty much where we're going to be matching into the existing pavement. This is the limits that are required for us for reconstruction with adjusting any kind of grades and matching into existing. We are relatively matching existing throughout the entire project limits.
We're just extending out because of the construction associated with this area and the work area that we need. So we're just going to pave all the way to that. We're not adjusting any elevations in this particular area. And I will address just the western end since we're talking about paving. This is Old Colony Road that comes in. So we are just to the west of Old Colony Road. We'll be doing minor paving at the very end of it. As you can see, our wall ends up to that intersection. All right, we'll give a couple of minutes for anyone watching on YouTube. Give them the opportunity to be able to send in that email or leave that voicemail. And again, if anyone has any questions they come up with after this presentation, please send them in that email. I'll pull up that. So again, please visit the project webpage. Be able to have access to that email address and the survey. And the comment period for this project is going to close September 9th. So at this point, I'll say that I think this concludes our presentation. I want to thank everyone that attended, provided your comments. If you have any additional comments, please send them in with the email. You can still leave that voicemail if you want, and comment period ends September 9th. Please complete the survey monkey. It's not a requirement, but we certainly value the input we get from it, and it helps us out with any future public meetings that we schedule. Thanks again, everybody.